Welcome to the Loveish Podcast, a practical weekly podcast centered on mental wellness, faith, relationships, and you guessed it, love. I'm your host, Sita Hood, a licensed clinical social worker. Now, sis, I should mention before we hop into the show, this is not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed therapist. You ready? Let's get it. Hi, how is everybody doing? Welcome to the first ever live recording of the Loveish Podcast. Woohoo! I wish I had some sounds, but I don't have any sounds. I just want to welcome you guys, though. You're going to see me looking back and forth between screens because we have Instagram Live over here, and then we have YouTube and Facebook over here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Bridget. We see you. Hi, Queen. Hi, Siley. Hi, Lynette. I am so happy that you all could join us. So if this is your first time tuning into the Loveish Podcast or finding us, following us, I want to introduce you to the concept behind the Loveish Podcast. First of all, my name is Sita Hood. For those that don't know, I am a licensed clinical social worker. And I felt like it was super important to create this podcast because we want to break cookie cutter molds around certain conversations, right? Conversations surrounding relationships a lot of the times, right? Like we maybe feel like we can't be real in the body of Christ when we're talking about problems that really come up in relationships. So that's the reason why the podcast was created. And I am so excited to have you guys on here with me live. For those of you that are either on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, if you have a question, please type your question. And I will do my best to answer the questions. But we have some pre-submitted questions that I'm going to go ahead and tackle first. But before we even get into all of that, hello, what are y'all sipping on today? Now, y'all know I love me some Starbucks. Hi, Amber. How you doing? Did y'all go get y'all red cups this morning? Yes, no, type it in the chat. Type a 1 in the chat if you went and got your red cup this morning. This is a caramel brulee latte. I love when the fall holiday comes around just because, come on, they only serve this around that time. Anyway, let me know what you guys are drinking. Even if it's not coffee. Yes, Amber says she has her coffee. I know that's right. Is anybody drinking anything from Starbucks? Did you guys make the red cup tradition? If you guys check my stories, you'll see that I did put like a video, a quick boomerang of what the red cups look like this year. Bridget says tea today for her. Amber says it is not Starbucks, it's Ambucks. I heard that. It's probably still FI though. Okay. All right. Let me know where you're checking in from. Where's our audience from? Let me know. Let me know. Are you guys from Illinois? Are you from elsewhere? I know that, we have a lot of people from Illinois, but I don't want to just assume that that's where everybody's from. So let me know. Take a second to let me know where you are from before we jump into these questions. I'm so happy to be live with y'all today. Y'all took time out your busy schedules to come and record with me and pre-submit those questions. Okay, Illinois. Everybody mainly from Illinois. Okay, let's jump into the questions. Okay, so living in Arizona. Okay, Queen is living in Arizona. So I'm going to get right to it. This was a 2-part question that was submitted in advance. Tuning in live from Illinois. Okay, When someone says they feel connected to him or her, how would you describe a connection between a man and a woman? And then the other part is, do you believe there is a pattern of people of the opposite sex that you fall for? It seems like those are the ones that you are always drawn to, and you fall into the cycle of the wrong one. Okay. Actually, I think that was the wrong two parts. Okay. When someone says they feel connected to him or her, how would you describe a connection between a man or a woman? So I think that this term of connection is subjective. Like, how I view connection is going to be totally different from the way that you view connection. Bridget says, great seeing you live. It is great to have you live. I'm super excited that I get to read you guys' live comments and feedback and things. So back to answering our question. So this connection, this concept of connection, I feel like based on our childhood experiences, we are going to perceive connections differently. And it also brings into play our love languages. So if my love language is acts of service and your love language is physical touch, the way that I perceive connection might be, I feel very connected to you because you picked me up from work, versus the way that you perceive connection could be just because we held hands on the way home from work. Hi, Elizabeth. Happy to have you here. So does that make sense? Type a 2 in the chat if that makes sense. If it makes sense, how you feel connected. I think the deeper part of this question is, do you feel like this relationship is of substance? I feel like that's probably what the person is trying to ask when they're talking about a deeper connection. And I would say you probably should start with what your expectations are for the relationship. A lot of times we see somebody, we think they pretty fine, we like how they look, then we go out with them, they pretty funny, et cetera, et cetera. And that's good, but we don't really look for what we want in a relationship, right? And so we have to be aware of what we want in a relationship before we actually jump into relationships. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, then you know that I say all the time that relationships are about expectations. Okay, Bridget says that makes total sense. Yes, thank you. So you guys know that relationships are about expectations, right? So if they are about expectations, that means that we need to know what it is we're actually requiring of somebody. Otherwise, it's kind of unfair for us to get upset when they don't meet our expectation if we never communicated that with them, right? Okay, so here's the two-part question. Do you believe that there is a pattern of people that you fall for? I'm going to break this down, because if you guys are looking on YouTube or Facebook, you guys can see the question going across the screen, and you see that it's pretty long. So I'm going to take the first part. Do you believe there's a pattern of people that you fall for? Yes, absolutely. I think that, again, based on a lot of different things, how you were raised, experiences that you've had, how you view relationships, and what you tend to feel like is someone that is safe for you. So let's say that, I feel like I am attracted to people that are always ending up in heartbreak for me, because that is a common question that I get, in therapy. Why do I always fall for, let's just say, the wrong guy? I'm gonna just generalize and say the wrong guy. And I'm gonna say, again, we have to go back to those expectations. And I think it can be very deceptive if we're not really paying attention throughout the dating process. Because let's be real, like, it feels really good to get caught up with butterflies and stuff like that when you're at the beginning of a relationship. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Type in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. It feels good to get lost in the emotion of it all. So sometimes when we're lost in the emotion of it all, that can take away, it can put blinders on us, all we see is the person in front of us, and we're not paying attention to these red flags. So y'all have seen, if you have any interaction with social media, you've seen those red flag posts that come up. Like, oh, he said this, red flag. She did this, red flag. We're not paying attention to that because we're caught up with the butterflies of the relationship. So we have to be paying attention to the patterns. Bridget says, yes, the butterflies. Okay, so paying attention first and foremost. And I actually had this conversation the other day with one of my clients who was talking about how she started to date this guy that she felt like was outside of her typical pattern because, the guy was in therapy too and things were going well for a while. But then she realized that they had formed a trauma bond. And if you guys don't know anything about a trauma bond and what that is, a trauma bond is essentially what happens when you bond over your past hurt. So it can more than likely end up toxic if you're not paying attention. And if two people are not intentionally trying to work against, the trauma bond. So you have to be mindful of that as well. Okay, Queen says that's a fact. Okay. All right. So really just being aware, paying attention, being very intentional. If you're saying that you want to break a negative dating cycle, then that means that you want to date differently. So if you want to date differently, you should probably start trying to meet people in different places than you always go to meet them. So let's just say, for example, you always meet people through an app. Maybe you want to switch it up and you give somebody the time of day at a grocery store, or the type of person that you're looking for, you need to be looking in the type of place that they will be. Bridget says, wow, a trauma bond. Yes, I think that it happens more often than we know because we're not paying attention. And by the time we realize that it's a trauma bond, it's too late. So again, paying attention to what's happening in the relationship, where we're meeting the person. So let's say if I say, I want to meet somebody who is on my same financial status. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee that somebody's going to be on your same financial status. You just got to pray and hope you run into them. But let's just say you want to. So you're probably not going to be looking at people that are in, I don't want to say, you're not going to be looking at people that are in lower level work positions. If you're looking at somebody that's in a higher level, or if you are at a mid-level income and you want someone also at a mid-level income, because let's say you feel like money changes you, you're not going to be looking at a high-level person. And then on the same token, someone could want to be financially stable, but not want to date someone with work patterns that keep them, at work all the time in that CEO role. So it's really about just paying attention to what you want in the relationship and what you're doing, right? So it seems like those are the ones you are always drawn to, and you fall into the cycle of the wrong one. That was the first part of that question. So I'm going to share with you the second part of that question. Y'all, I have to delete these questions as I'm going through because I've been confused myself. Okay. Okay. And the second part is when you try something that you don't usually fall for, you just really don't like that either. Is there any way to break that cycle? So I'm going to go back and repeat here and say the way that you break the cycle is to be intentional. Now, I really think that we think about accountability in other areas of our life, but we don't think about accountability with dating, right? And so what that might look like to help you break some of those patterns is maybe talking to a trusted friend. And I have to say trusted friend because I know that there's like this social media thing happening right now where we feel like, oh, this person is a hater, everybody's toxic, nobody's rooting for me. That's just not true, sis. It's just not true, right? You do have some people that are rooting for you, even if it is few and far in between. So with that in mind, you want to talk to some of these people and ask them, okay, these are the things that I want when I'm dating. How can you help me to be more intentional about finding the right person, right? Like, I will promise to be honest with you and talk to you when I'm meeting somebody and let you know if I see a red flag. But I want to point something out to you guys. That means that, again, like we just said, you have to be willing to be honest, because if you're not being honest, then none of that is actually going to work, right? I could say, hey, girl, I need accountability all day. But if I'm not going to be real about something that came up, then do I really want accountability? Right. Okay. All right. Just going to sip a little bit of coffee here. Again, if you have any questions that you want to submit about relationships of all kinds, go ahead and submit it, and I will do my best to get to it. So really, you have to be intentional about breaking the cycle. You have to be honest. I would definitely recommend that you get someone to keep you accountable in the relationship. And we don't like accountability, y'all, but if we want our relationships to grow and flourish, we have to be willing to be held accountable, right? And then y'all already knew this one was coming. Let me just show y'all. I got on my Therapy is Lit hoodie. Yes. So y'all already know. Therapy. Sis, go to therapy. Why are we fighting against the grain, hunty? Now they have all types of therapeutic resources out there. They have therapy that you could do from the comfort of your home. They have therapy, of course, that you could use your insurance for, apps that you could type and text and chat people through. Like, there are a lot of resources out there. So there is really not an excuse for diving deeper and trying to really understand what it is in you that might be attracted to this type of person, and whether, like we talked about earlier, that's a trauma bond, or whether that's actually something that, you want in a person. Something that comes up a lot of times when I am talking to successful women that were born in quotation marks, the hood, and they're successful, they've hit or gone over the 6-figure mark. Something that comes up a lot is, who am I without the struggle? I have women that literally cry in my office because they're having an identity crisis, not understanding who they are without this piece of their story. And if we're being honest, that's a scary space to be in, but your responses, for example, as you generate more income, coming to the point where it's like, okay, I don't have to manage money the ways that I did back then. I'm not that same person that I was. And so achieving this level, it becomes now, who am I without the struggle? Who am I if I don't have to be working paycheck to paycheck? And the beautiful part of that, if that is you and you are listening, is you get to define who you are, baby girl. You are in a beautiful point in your journey. That means that you get to explore who it is that you want to be. You get to pray and ask God, who are you calling me to be in this season? And then you get to walk that out. That's actually, even though it's a vulnerable place to be in, that's kind of scary, it's also a really good place to start over. Before we get to our other questions, we are going to pause and have a word from our sponsor for this episode. This episode is brought to you by the Confident Bae app. I created this app to provide a safe space for women of color struggling with prioritizing themselves. Inside of the Confident Bae app, you're gonna gain access to exclusive content such as workshops, replays, Conde TV, a private digital cafe to connect with other women, journal prompts, affirmations, daily reminders, and so much more. The best part about using the app? It's free. That's right, girl. You get 24/7 access to a squad of like-minded women for free. No more subliminal Facebook rants, boo. Here you can take the mask off and be yourself. Sis, what are you waiting for? Hit the link in the show notes and download the app today. Okay, so really quick for those of you that are on Instagram, I just shared about the Confident Bay app. That is an app that I just launched on Monday. Woohoo! And shout out to the 86 people that have downloaded the app. Yes, I see y'all out here. Y'all better slay, okay? And shout out to the people that are already very active inside of the chat. So, we just talked about therapy, right? We talked about support and accountability. The Confident Bay app brings you that. And there's a free component and a paid component. But the free component, you still get access to the squad. You get access to a ton of other great resources as well. So y'all check out the Confident Bay app too, okay? So the next question, and Bridget, I did see your question. I transferred it over here. The next question that we have, how can I fix my relationship with my dad? We've never had a good relationship, but recently he said he wants to work on it. So I guess my first question would be to the person that submitted this question. Hey, Tiff, do you want to work on your relationship with your dad? Are you in a position where you can work on your relationship with your dad? So this goes back to, again, therapeutic resources, supportive tribe, people that can help you process your thoughts, process your emotions. If you have no clue what I'm talking about when I say processing your thoughts or your emotions, I'm going to need y'all to go to the loveishpod.com and check out, I think it was episode 14, how to process your emotions. Go check out that episode, because you're going to need to process through some of your own emotions about, how you feel. You can't try to force yourself to reestablish or establish a relationship with your father if you're not in a good headspace to do so. Now, I am not saying that means that the relationship is going to be perfect, or that, you're going to have to be in a perfect headspace to even do that. You might be in a jacked up headspace, but if something is like, okay, I feel like I need to work this out, or if you feel like Holy Spirit is telling you, go ahead and get that situated, then you need to do it. But you need to do it with some caveats in place. So again, I feel like y'all always gonna hear me go back to expectations, sis. Like, so at this point, y'all already know I'm gonna have you say, what do you want it to look like? Because one thing that I feel like parents forget, and I pray to God that I never forget this as my children get older. I feel like parents forget that children can choose whether they want a relationship with you or not. I'm going to say that one more time. Children can choose whether they want a relationship with you or not, okay? So that means that how you treat them in the childhood matters for when they become adults. If you were not the best parent and now you want to try to reclaim the relationship, that's great for you. And I would say do all that you can do, to try and reclaim that relationship and fix that relationship. However, you also have to be respectful if your child does not want to repair the relationship, or if your child wants time. So really figuring it out, do I even want to reestablish this relationship? And if I do, what do I want the relationship to look like? Okay, yeah, most people call their dads every day or blah, 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 whatever. Like, but that doesn't mean that you have to do that. Bridget says, woo, children can choose. Wow. Yes, ma'am. Children can choose. That's what we forget. And even now, I think this is something that happens often in like communities of color. We look down on parents that actually give their children options. Now, I'm not saying let little Johnny run all over you. That's not what I'm saying, sis. But what I am saying is, we have to be honest, right? We have to be respectful. We have to give children choices, and we got to be honest about when we haven't been respectful with our children. So I'll give you guys an example. Today, my 3-year-old, I'm pulling out shirts. No, no, no. And I could pick a shirt for him to wear, but I just wanted to give him a choice today. So he kept saying, no, no, no. And then finally I was like, okay, child, this is getting old. So I held up 2 shirts. I said, this one or this one. So he was still allowed to choose, but he was allowed to choose on my terms, but also something that he wanted to do. And that's not how every morning goes, y'all. Don't get it twisted. Every morning he ain't picking out his clothes, child. But sometimes it's okay to give children a choice, even if it's a choice between some things, 2 things or 3 things that you decide are okay. They need boundaries still, but you have to also be respectful. So now, if you weren't respectful or if you weren't present, it's just not okay for you to now try to uh, press your convictions on your child. Tiffany says we have to give them the same things we will want. They are smaller versions of us. Yes, they are. Queen says they are watching us even though it doesn't look like they are. Yes, absolutely. That's good. Choosing on your terms. Bridget says that. Okay. All right, great. So essentially, if you need therapeutic resources to repair your relationship with your dad, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to seek out those resources. If you need support and you're not in a good headspace and you need some time, it's okay to say that. If you don't want a relationship on the terms that they are trying to push you or your dad is trying to push you into, it's also okay to say that. That's not rude. Jesus not going to put you in hell for saying I need some time. Okay. Okay. Because I think it is a misconception that when we come to forgiveness as Christians, the way that we approach that's a hot button topic, right? We don't want to, it's either forgiveness or it's not. And in reality, it's okay to forgive and set some boundaries in place, okay? Y'all can forgive and still have boundaries in place. Okay? All right. So I am going to go to our next question here. What should you do when you feel like it's been way too much pain in a friendship to fix it? Wow. Wow, 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 wow. First thing I'm going to do to whoever submitted this question is I'm going to tell you to check out last week or this past week's episode of the Loveish Podcast, and then this week coming up, because it's a 2-part series from the Pink Emerald Retreat where we talked about sisterhood and the things that get in the way of that. And so one thing that came up with the concept of friendships and sisterhood is we don't give our friendships the same respect as we do our romantic relationships. And that hurts, right? If we think about that, how many times have you felt rejected and placed over a man? I know I felt it before, and it doesn't feel good because I feel like, yes, your husband, he is the head of your home, he is your priority, but also there's room for friendships there as well. Tiffany says we have to extend grace. Yes, we do. We do have to extend grace. But again, my question is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in this situation? If you feel like it's been too much pain, and again, you feel like the friendship can never be where it was, that's okay too. That is okay too. One thing that I say to my husband, or I have said to my husband before, is I will never love you again the way that I loved you with the butterflies. And for some people, they like, dang, girl, that sound bogus. What? Listen, let me explain it. Because I tell the couples that I work with this too. I think we have this like false sense that butterflies exist in marriage forever. A lie from the pit of hell, child. But it doesn't have to be a depressing thought. Why? I will never love you that way, but I will love you with a deeper love because now I choose to love you. I see your flaws, you see my flaws, and both of us still choose to love each other in spite of our flaws. That's 10 times better than some butterflies, baby. Okay? Tiffany's laughing. And for those that want to know, if you got a question, oh, she'll know what she's talking about. She ain't been married. Baby, I've been married for a decade. And I'm not out here claiming to have all the answers. And I'm not out here saying that my marriage is perfect, honey, because it's not. No marriage is perfect. But I can tell you that when you decide to let go of what you think, oh my gosh, I just want that fresh love that we had when we were dating. I want that. Ooh, ooh. When you let that go and you embrace who it is that you got, who you decided to marry, and I'm not. Hold on, let me give a caveat. Okay, Tiffany said, "Come on, 10 years." Thank you, sis. um, Bridget's been married for 10 years too. Shout out to Bridget. She just celebrated an anniversary as well. But let me give a caveat here. I am not saying stay in an abusive relationship, okay? Don't y'all leave this podcast episode saying Sita told you to stay in an abusive relationship. Sita did not say that. She didn't say that. No, ma'am. But point being, the point, you choose to accept that person, right? And so I feel like the exact same thing comes with our friendships. It's been too much pain in a friendship, but what are you deciding there? Is that emotional? Is that physical? Like, first of all, what is the pain? Because we can't stay in a relationship where, okay, we're talking about friends that maybe physically fought, did some stuff that was just like, no, cross my line, I'm not doing that again, or I don't talk to people that have done that, etc., blah blah blah. There's a whole lot of pieces of this question here. So first of all, what type of pain are we talking about? Is it life-changing pain? Is it, just it hurts when you don't talk to me for such and such amount of days? Because that could be a real pain as well. But I would say that perhaps that's just a matter of your expectations and not actually that the person is trying to intentionally hurt your feelings because you didn't call me back, you didn't do this. And listen, while y'all out here playing, I have had people get upset with me because of that. Bringing stuff up a year later, years later. You said you was going to call me back. You never did. I'm like, Chad, I didn't forget. I didn't have nothing against you. I just forgot to call you back. Tiffany says, right, it is a loaded question. It needs to be unpacked properly to answer it. Yes, because it's so many pieces to it. Like, yes, what type of pain we talking about? Do you want to fix it? And have you had the conversation about your expectations with this friend? Right? One thing that one of our panelists at the retreat brought up, Risa, she said that if you find yourself in a position where you're struggling in a friendship, you probably should have a conversation on your values. I said, oh, girl, you better say that, hot tea. Come on, values. Yes. Many of us do not consider values. Like we just talked about all of these caveats, like, yeah, I got this list, this what I want in a man, this what I want here, blah, blah, blah. But we don't do that for our friendships. Why, sis? Why? Your friends literally determine the course of your life. So you should be really intentional about how you proceed in that relationship. So I can't really give Tiffany says, yes, hard conversations. I can't give you a solid answer, but I would say that again, it requires you to process your thoughts and your emotions. Do you want the friendship? If you don't want the friendship, if you feel like it's okay for you to walk away, Holy Spirit says it's okay. It ain't one of those relationships where he's trying to build your character, because sometimes God sends people to put a little heat on us to build our character, right? And we can't walk away from that. Otherwise, we won't be refined. So if it's not one of those situations, you're not feeling like you can be an active participant in the friendship, then it's okay to walk away from that. Bridget says values are definitely important in friendships. Yes, they are. But if you decide you want to fix it, if you decide you want to fix it, then you got to decide the best time to have a conversation with sis. But first, you need to again clarify your values, clarify your expectations, and make sure that you coming at it from a good headspace. And we don't do this. Hey, Sarah, she says she's sliding in between sessions. Glad to have you join us. A lot of times we don't do this, but the same way you pray for your romantic relationship, baby girl, pray for that friendship too. Okay. Lifelong friendships are not established through quick little drive-by relationship, drive-by calls. Call me when you need something. That's it. No, the same way you're going to bathe your marriage in prayer, you need to bathe your friendships in prayer as well. Okay. So if you really want to fix it, those are the things that I would say you should do. I'm going to move on to the next question. People always say go to therapy when you have problems, but how does that really help me in a marriage that's basically done? Hold on, child. Let me take a sip of coffee, child. Oh, child. One more sip now, child. Okay. Sarah says, yes. Tiffany says, intentionality. I'm assuming you ladies are talking about in friendships, that comment that we were talking about. Okay, so back to this marriage question. Whew. I think the very first place to start is, are you in an abusive relationship? And what do you classify as a marriage that's basically done? You got to get really honest with yourself. What do you mean when you say basically done? This basically done, my version of basically done is going to be different from somebody else's. Tiffany says all relationships take intentionality. Bridget says, yes, bathe your friendships in prayer. Just a side note for those that are on Instagram, I have some people on Instagram and YouTube. If you are over on YouTube, I can put your comments and your questions on the screen. Just a little FYI. But okay, people say go to therapy when you have problems. How does it really help? Do you want your marriage? Do you want your marriage? What do you mean when you say basically done? Does the other person in your marriage think it's basically done as well? Okay. Because sometimes, again, it's a matter of communication. Have you had the conversation about the things that frustrate you? And in reality, therapy will always be helpful for you. Even if the other person doesn't go, it is amazing if the other person goes, right? If the other person goes and they care as well, the two of you can work to intentionally rebuild your marriage, because simply by going to therapy, you are making another commitment to one another, right? But if the other person won't go to therapy and you are the one that goes to therapy, it's perfectly okay for you to get tips and suggestions on how to be in that relationship without the other person being in therapy, right? So how does it really help? One, I would say you can identify patterns in yourself that are toxic. Can we get real about that? Nobody want to talk about how we have toxic traits. We have toxic patterns, right? We just want to blame the other person. Like, yeah, I'm married. He do this. I don't know about y'all, but if I'm venting to my friends, I'm going to tell my friends what I did too. Okay. I done told y'all before, I'm from the hood. So Sita has never been scared to say what she's done in the relationship as well. So, but really, it can help you to get really honest about some not so good things that you got going on. And that could be a big contributing factor to what's happening in the relationship. But also, the way that our relationships are formed and life and stuff like that is like, life is, I don't want to butcher the quote, but I feel like I still am. So y'all just bear with me. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% our reaction. So I could feel some type of way about what my husband is doing, what my wife is doing, whatever. But what's my response to that? If I'm responding in a negative way, we just gonna keep climbing the ladder if neither one of us want to submit, if neither one of us want to let it go. So we got to be honest about that, honest about where we are, and realize that a therapist can also give you tips for how to handle and manage other things. And let's get real about something else too, right? Domestic violence awareness was just last month. I want to be real about this. Like, we kind of hinted on it a couple of times throughout the episode, but sometimes in communities of color, we tend to dumb down or minimize domestic violence. Domestic violence could be financial, emotional, physical, spiritual, etc. Like, there are a lot of ways to be abused. And because in communities of color, some of these behaviors have become so acceptable and we don't want to talk about them, or we say, oh, he just got a little upset, or she, because women can be abusive too, just got a little bit upset. We don't want to be real with that. So sometimes even going to therapy and talking about it, being real about that, you can see like, okay, both of us are abusive. We need to figure this out. So you can become more aware of your behaviors, maybe behaviors that you didn't even know existed, and respond to that. We have Ebony checking in. Ebony says, peace, beautiful people. Hey, Miss Ebony, we're happy to see you. So we can respond to that, right? Therapy helps you to realize what is happening with yourself, realize what is happening in your relationships, cue you into some of those toxic behaviors that you might have so that you can heal. And it may result in the marriage ending. It might. Or you might learn when you go to therapy that you actually do want to work on the relationship. And that's beautiful too, right? But again, you have to start with honesty. And I'm going to always be an advocate for therapy. Like, period, sis. You're talking to a therapist. Come on now. I'm always going to tell you to go to therapy, girl. But therapy can really just help you to become more self-aware overall. Okay. And our last question that I have, if you have questions, please submit them. You can submit them on Instagram, or you can submit them on Facebook or YouTube. If you submit them on Facebook or YouTube, I can add it to the screen. And I will just read it out loud if you submit from Instagram. So our question, do trauma bond relationships ever work out? Can they work? I'm gonna take a sip of coffee again. And my response to that is, I believe that two intentional people can make a relationship work. But again, they have to be aware. They have to be aware of the trauma bond. So this is in reference to what we were talking about earlier, how we recognize in dating patterns, and you might not realize that you ended up with this person because the trauma in you responded to the trauma in them, which created a trauma bond that now y'all can't seem to get away from, even though it's toxic. So again, it takes intentionality. Like Tiffany said earlier, she said all relationships take intentionality. So if both of you recognize that, or even one of you recognizes that, but you want to work on it, I would say that probably alone, you might not be able to release yourself from the toxic traits alone. Obviously, I'm a strong advocate of therapy. I believe that going to a therapist who can help you unpack what are all the ways in your relationship that trauma shows up, that the trauma bond is there, right? Because it's probably a lot of ways that you're not even aware of, right? Why do I always respond this way when he says this or he says that? Or if we being real about some stuff, how come I always want to go have sex when we argue? Why do I think sex fixes the relationship? Like, again, this is stuff we don't want to be real about, but we got to be real about it. And that sex fixing the relationship stuff, Now, hold on. Another caveat. I'm not saying makeup sex is not good. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. Hear what I'm saying. I'm saying that if that is your first response to try to fix everything, as opposed to communication and talking about the issues, that is likely coming up from your traumatic past. That is likely a a um a pattern that you've developed. Sarah says, check those unhealthy patterns. Yes. And Sarah is a therapist on Instagram as well. Shout out to Sarah. Y'all go follow her page. Tiffany is a social worker as well. I'm going to call you out, Tiff. I know you don't like it. I don't care. But I think if you are able to go to therapy, then yeah, anybody can heal. I believe that anybody can heal. The blood of Jesus still works. Hi, Niasha. How are you? The blood of Jesus still works, child. And he works in practical ways as well. Okay. So we got the spiritual aspect where we're praying over that, where we are aware. We thank God for revealing it to us. And then we have the natural aspect where we need to go to therapy. And then we have to actually do some work on ourselves in order to prevent the trauma stuff from continuing to happen. Right. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions before I end this live? I'm so excited that you guys were able to record with me. This is going to stay up on Instagram. It's going to stay up on YouTube and Facebook as well. Niasha says, I'm good. I am glad to hear that, sis. So anybody have any questions? I will wait around one more time, see if y'all got any questions. And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Questions or comments? This was awesome. Thank you, Amber. Amber says this was awesome. Okay. I'm trying not to move too fast because I know Instagram. This was great. Sarah says this was great. Thank you. I know that Instagram comments are a little bit delayed, so I'm trying to chill out with the ended button until it's actually time. Bridget says, great job. This was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for joining live. Queen says she is clapping it up. Thank you for everybody that joined on Facebook and YouTube. Bridget says, so awesome. Do it again. We will be doing it again, girl. We will. I will actually give you guys a sneak peek on what we're going to go live about, only because y'all here. I'm going to tell y'all what we're going to do the next live episode on. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? I don't know if y'all ready. Y'all got to type a 3 in the chat if y'all ready, because if I don't see no 3s, then honey, I don't know if I want to tell y'all. I need to see some excitement. Okay. So for those that don't know, again, tune into the Loveish Podcast every Tuesday. Oh, y'all got the 3s. Okay. Okay. So our next live next month is going to be about guilty pleasures. Okay. Guilty pleasures. I know when we hear that, it's like, oh, you should give up guilty pleasures. You should do whatever. We're going to be talking about some guilty pleasures that are okay for Christian women. Okay. 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 All right, you guys. We got we got an abundance of the 3s. Okay. Sarah says, ooh, Bridget says, we ready. Y'all blowing it up. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I will give you guys the date for the next live record with me. But again, we're going to be talking about guilty pleasure. So if you guys are going to be coming on, then I want you guys to again, like we did before, submit questions, submit whatever. You guys will see it on the Facebook or Instagram. Sarah says, sis, I am looking forward to that one. Yes. All right, ladies, we'll have a beautiful Friday Eve. Thank you so much for joining me live again. I will talk to you ladies later. I'll see you out here in these social media streets. I know I'm still recording over here, y'all. told y'all I'm managing like 3 platforms. Hold on, sis.